Yes, guys, we're back. Nuclear reaction faction here, reacting to the rest of the Casey Anthony case. Make sure you stick around to the end because this gets absolutely bonkers, mate. Like, you would not believe how crazy this gets until you see it. Just for context sake, she got accused of the disappearance and likely murder of her own daughter, Kaylee Anthony, and it's just insane. The original video is by JCS Criminal Psychology. I'll put a link in the video description, and let's get it.
She's hiding. She's not far. I know in my heart she's not far. I can feel it. Okay.
This was perhaps the first time Casey told the truth when speaking of her daughter's whereabouts, as she indeed wasn't that far away. Her attorney, Jose Baez, eventually managed to get her bail, and Casey was fitted with an electronic monitoring device and released on August 21st. She had spent just over 1 month in custody. 2 months later, police were granted permission to arrest Casey on the charge of first-degree murder. She was taken in for interrogation, but immediately requested her right to counsel. She was kept in the interview room while awaiting her attorney, and the released footage of that period is so bizarre to the point where it's almost comical. The detectives give off a passive, yet glaringly obvious vibe that lets Casey know exactly what they think, being that she is guilty of her daughter's probable death and a fundamentally terrible human being on every imaginable level. Casey's response to this is to essentially ignore it and act as if the discourse between them and the situation itself is an everyday occurrence, one that perhaps doesn't concern the disappearance of her daughter, for which she is being charged for. You'll notice that she effortlessly maintains the same confident and talkative disposition that she had in her previous interviews with police. It's almost surreal to watch given the circumstance, and the visual element adds an entire new level to the absurdity. The first segment of footage shows the arresting officer waiting with Casey for the lead investigator to arrive. He initiates the conversation by bringing up the subject of Casey's parents. He asserts that he's worried about them, but the actual message he's putting across is that he essentially knows Casey is guilty and that she isn't fooling anyone. It's an indirect yet obvious accusation.
I was afraid that some of what I said to them probably offended them because I told them that if I find out something that you don't want to hear, I'm going to tell you anyway.
Well, honestly, they'll respect that. That's just, the type of people that they are in the same way.
So usually she'd say, well, you're not, if she was innocent, she'd say, well, you're not going to find anything to tell them that they don't want to hear because I'm innocent. But she doesn't protest her innocence whatsoever, even in the face of clear passive accusations.
I know they are. It was never my intention to piss anybody in your family off. I'm not in it to get a conviction. I get nothing out of it. I get zero.
Exactly. You have a job you're trying to do.
I've found a few, and I've not found a few, and it sucks both ways.
Yeah, I agree.
So.
She pretends to know what this guy is talking about just to be agreeable and try and get him on her side, I think. Like, she's just being like so nonchalant and so blasé about the whole issue. And think for a minute, if you were being accused of the disappearance and death of your own daughter, you would not be so passive, especially having been in custody. Like, you would be furious, and you would be very assertive that you've not done anything, especially in the face of passive accusations, even almost direct confrontation.
It is what it is. Where I get sideways with people tends to be when attorneys get involved.
I've heard most people say that. They don't like attorneys very much.
I have many family members that are attorneys. I have no problems with attorneys. What I have problems with are, at some point, we have to set aside the rules and we have to find kids. And you know what? So be it. That's why I told you in the car. If you tell me anything now, I'll get up and say, yep, I heard it, and she'd already invoked it. We can't use any of it. That's just the way it is. That's all that matters to me.
Yeah.
The detective here has essentially just asked Casey for the information he knows she has about her missing child. Rather than retaliate and refute the blatant accusation, Casey continues with her sharp responses of accordance as if to say she agrees and knows exactly where the detective is coming from. Yet although she apparently agrees, she offers no information or follow-up dialogue thereafter. It's so incredibly awkward, yet equally intriguing to watch.
And, when we did another case that I was involved in, they lost a confession. And I sat there and I looked right at the guys that we worked with. I said,
That's not what's
who
important.
cares?
Yeah.
We found her. We found her, and he's going to get what is coming to him. That's not my job.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And it works out in the end. And it works out in the end on all sides,
Mm-hmm.
to be honest with you. It may not be comfortable for everybody.
Yeah.
And I've done things that if I get caught for, I'm not going to be comfortable, I can tell you that. It's just the way life is. You know, but it's not the end of the road either.
He's literally just one step away from saying, I know you did this. I know, like, he couldn't be closer to accusing her directly if he tried, but he's doing it in a passive way. Like, and I'm sure there's some strategic value to doing this, but like, it's so awkward. Like JCS says, like, it's so awkward because he's obviously accusing her of it, and she's just going along like, yeah, no, I agree. And then she pretends to know what he's talking about when she has no idea.
And that's what we have to keep in mind. It's not the end of the road.
Casey then casually brings up the topic of the grand jury and the media surrounding her murder trial. She raises the questions as if she's talking about her favorite daytime TV show.
Yeah, I
But
know.
but if the subpoena itself is just a regular federal
Yeah,
or
certain
grand
things
jury
are
subpoena, that's public record.
knowledge, yeah.
It doesn't say what it's for. It doesn't say what case it's in. It doesn't. It just says you're subpoenaed to appear before the grand jury.
Well, with them announcing that, you know, there was going to be a grand jury, and obviously my name was thrown out, they knew who the grand jury was for.
Who threw your name out?
All of the media said that it was from an inside source, meaning in here. So that's where they all say is.
I can tell you
getting
what I
their
think
sources
of the
from.
media and what I think of people who leak stuff to the media.
I think it's garbage. Yeah,
But
I agree. That's the
that
next way
doesn't
of putting
that
it.
doesn't make it any less necessary.
Can you see how she's just automatically agreeing with whatever he says and pretending she knows what he's talking about to be more relatable, and she thinks she's making herself look more innocent, but really she isn't, because if you were being accused of doing something so heinous to your own child, you would be furious and you would be adamant and like very aggressive about the fact that you were innocent and being wrongly and unjustly kept in custody. Like, her reaction is just not an innocent reaction whatsoever. And I should state that everything I say in regards to her probable guilt is allegedly, like, because she didn't get proven guilty in court technically, even though like the court of public opinion is very, very clear on the issue. It's just bonkers. You would not believe.
Without them, I'll be quite honest, without the media, we don't find a quarter of the kids that we
Oh, I
are
agree.
looking for.
It helps. The exposure has helped bring in so many tips for my daughter.
But at the same time, what it creates is it creates a monster that otherwise isn't necessary.
Exactly.
What do you mean exactly? You don't even know what he's talking about yet. Give him a chance to actually say something.
What the tips are. If it was a local media only, it would be much easier to work.
Yeah.
When you make it the national media, then you come up
You
with
get the Nancy Graces.
well, you get
everything
the
else.
tips also that come from Hawaii that say I saw Kaylee. Oh, really? Okay, let me call
Now,
Hawaii
ones
and let me
from
send them out.
Georgia
Let me do
and
that.
ones that are a little bit closer.
Those are what I
range.
consider local, because the,
Yeah.
the local
It's in
stations
close
are going to
range.
cover that.
Yeah.
That's contiguous to the state of Florida. That's,
She's not even allowing him to speak. Like, she's just agreeing with everything passively. Like, it's infuriating, really.
When people are only getting their information from the Nancy Graces or from Globe magazine or People or, you know, stuff like that. Are you kidding me?
You're not going to break bad, right? All right. We're going to call him on my cell phone.
Okay. I know this is, oh, yeah, that's not good.
I'm sorry if I get a bit emotional in this case. It just really, really, as a dad with a daughter, it just really gets to me, man.
Just slide your hand out. No, I'll get it.
I honestly can't. So they're a little tight.
Thanks for entertaining us. Just slide your
way to
hand
go,
out.
Corporal Edwards.
Actually, if I could, I would have done that for you.
Do you know Baez's phone number off the top of your head?
No, I do not.
How can we get the cell number or his number?
I know his office number,
What is that?
407.
I've identified myself. You know you're in custody.
Yes.
And you signed this. You want your attorney present.
Yes. Hey, it's Casey. I'm with Corporal Edwards. I know the last name, sorry. I'm at the Sheriff's Department if you'd like to come down and meet with us. Thank you. Yes. And to answer your other question, from that picture, I cut my hair. It was really short even last year. I just started growing it back out this year, so.
No one cares.
Just about that.
Okay.
So awkward.
It has been.
How was my dad this morning?
He had a hard time,
Yeah.
honestly.
I only saw from the media and got a chance to hear him talking to my mom. I spoke to him last night and this morning for just a quick second before he left, so.
Yeah, I talked to him this morning for a little bit. He was with Mark, and he was really struggling. I mean, I can imagine he was having a hard time. He was being called in to essentially provide testimony to indict you, to at least. And he was really struggling with that.
Yeah.
And I felt bad for him, to be honest with you. I truly did.
Well, I even told him last night. I know he was subpoenaed, and under the law, he had to answer whatever questions were asked him, and I told him to do what he had to do.
Imagine you were Casey, but void of any wrongdoing whatsoever. Your daughter was kidnapped 5 weeks ago, and now a detective who thinks you're the culprit is relaying the agonizing moments of your father providing information for your arrest. No matter how stoic or self-controlled your nature, you would most likely be in tears or completely enraged at the overwhelming unjustness of the situation.
Absolutely.
Are you anxious about today at all?
I have been. I mean, this is something, honestly, we've been preparing for from the beginning just because of words that were directly spoken from Yuri Melich and also from Sergeant Allen. They were saying that this is what they were planning on doing from the very beginning, from that first day. So they wrote me off within the first couple hours. That was the only time they ever made any effort to try to talk to me one-on-one.
Yeah, sorry guys, like with this mask on, yeah, like because I'm reacting to sensitive topics, I don't want my face all over it, but like with this mask and this headset on, man, oh man, it gets itchy, so it might be
Difficult.
That was kind of difficult considering.
Well, considering, obviously, in light of everything that's going on and the fact that you've been arrested for other things, makes it a little more difficult to sit down and even talk to you.
Mm-hmm.
It's not that we haven't wanted to.
Yeah. But I do have counsel, and that's something that, my attorney's always been a phone call away.
Has your attorney ever told you that we would like to speak to you?
And we had agreed, him and I together, that we would all sit down together, him and I, and you guys, and, we'd entertain whatever questions you have. And
There is no possible way that a defense attorney would actually sit down and, as Casey states, entertain any question the police have for them. Yet if we weren't paying close attention, we would take her at her word due to the eloquence of her dialogue and not realize everything she's saying is complete nonsense.
I actually thought that we made it pretty clear that we wanted to talk to you. I mean, obviously, we can't come to you and ask you.
Yeah,
but,
understandably.
I thought that you were aware that if you wanted to talk to anybody, that all you got to do was simply ask.
Yeah, well, I know it goes both ways on that, and I guess it would have needed to come from me. I should have been the one to have, come forward with it. But, we did open up that door to law enforcement before, when Sergeant Allen was making a big deal saying, well, we want to talk to her. When can we talk to her? And he's saying, well, the door's open.
I don't believe he ever told us the door was open.
What's fascinating is how instinctive and confident her assertions are. In any other circumstance, or even without the knowledge we have now, you would have no reason not to believe everything she's saying.
I've heard the words come out of his mouth, even myself, directed to other people that maybe didn't either relay the message or took it a different way, so I don't know. I think the lack of communication has put people in opposite corners when everybody has the same goal, is to find Kaylee. We all still feel, I as a mom, I know in my gut, there's the feeling as a parent, you know certain things about your child, you can feel that connection, and I still have that feeling, that presence. I know that she's alive. Whether you have a bucket load of evidence downstairs that contradicts that and says otherwise, or all you have is speculation, or nothing at all. I mean,
we have more than speculation.
as every tip and
that's
every
something that I
lead
told
followed
Jose
up on.
directly.
Yeah.
That we have more than speculation. We have a lot, or else we wouldn't be to this point. A lot.
This was essentially a direct confrontation. The detective has just told Casey they have sufficient evidence to prove her guilt. Casey doesn't refute or even respond to the accusation. She instead falls back to her ridiculous dialogue once again, hoping the confidence in her voice will mask the absurdity of what she's actually saying.
Well, I said the same thing to them, that, they said that we're at the end of a hallway, and I'm thinking we're at the end of a hallway and there's 2 doors. Which door are we going to go through? Or I guess this is, we're at this point, and
we are at this point. We're
the final step is which door is walked through.
We are well beyond where we were before.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, those issues are gone, okay? And when we refer to we're at the end of the hallway, I think you were well aware of what hallway we're talking about. Do you understand that?
Well, so there's no question, I guess. You can specify that at this point, or what your perspective is on that.
You have a second?
Absolutely.
Can we come right back?
Yeah, that's fine.
You plan on running off?
I'm not going anywhere.
So I gotta stretch out a little bit. I'm not as young as I used to be.
It's unfortunate that right when the pressure was starting to build, the second detective interrupts the exchange and they both leave the room soon after. Casey waits alone for roughly 40 minutes before her attorney shows up.
He's going to ask you a question. You don't say anything else other than the answer. Okay?
Casey, based on our conversation today, and I read you that form, basically just same thing I said to Mr. Baez over the phone. If there's been numerous requests for opportunities to speak with us and come to a resolution here. And that's why we brought you here instead of the jail. Correct?
Yes.
Okay. Now, based on your request for us to call him and bring him here, he's here. So what we're going to try to do is give you a few minutes somewhere that's not recorded. No secrets, I told you. This room's recorded. I have to be able to approach my chain and explain why.
The detective now guilefully takes Casey up on her previous offer, where she insisted they were willing to sit down with police and answer questions.
But first, I needed you to tell him, in your own words, if you will, that you'd like to take the opportunity to deal with us like you've made that request in the past. So, is that something you want to tell him?
I told him the same thing we talked about before, that we would entertain any questions that they have. We would listen and discuss it, and if we have something to respond, we'll respond.
Okay, do you want to speak to me in private?
Yes.
So we can clarify this?
Yes.
It would come as no surprise that no conference was to be had. Casey was instead taken to the county jail, where she would remain for 2.5 years awaiting trial. Once this footage was released to the public domain, the consensus was that Casey at best was a cold-hearted mother, and at worst, a hideous, despicable murderer. But what's curious is that although these opinions may be accurate, they came from a completely misguided notion, being that her behavior in the footage was entirely genuine. Casey was in all likelihood being completely fake this entire time. So you might be curious as to why a person would actually fake such a poised temperament, when it would be far more fitting to fake sadness and despair. We all have aspects to ourselves that are ungenuine to a certain degree. How we act at a business dinner won't be the way we are at home with our close friends or family. The more comfortable the setting, the more we can be ourselves. Those educated on Casey's past would assert that she was rarely sad, rarely angry, but always this bubbly and agreeable personality, even when it didn't suit the situation. She was one of those people where something just seemed off. But
She's like a chameleon, she's got to be at the very least a sociopath, definitely.
On Casey's past would assert that she was rarely sad, rarely angry, but always this bubbly and agreeable personality, even when it didn't suit the situation.
Probably a
psychopath. She was one of those people where something just seemed off.
Yeah, the reason I think psychopath is because she got analysed by, officially, by I think it was 2 or 3 different psychiatrists, and they all said there was nothing wrong with her, which is exactly how psychopaths can manipulate clinicians into thinking that they're sane. Which is interesting.
But you couldn't quite put your finger on it. The evidence put forward suggests...
And also, we have a natural fight or flight. What he was just saying is how there was something off about her. We have a natural instinct to spot psychopaths for self-preservation.
Close friends or family. The more comfortable the setting, the more we can be ourselves. Those educated on Casey's past would assert that she was rarely sad, rarely angry, but always this bubbly and agreeable personality, even when it didn't suit the situation. She was one of those people where something just seemed off. but you couldn't quite put your finger on it. The evidence put forward suggests that Casey was fake in every single setting and with every single person all of the time, a trait that might go unnoticed in everyday life, yet would clearly stand out when shown under the microscope of a criminal case study. Casey had become so accustomed to this fraudulent way of being that it even came as a natural behavior to her in the extraordinary setting we see here. And the assertion is that because Casey knew just how well she could fabricate this character, she thought she could use it to mask her anxiety, and thus conceal guilty behavior. Casey, in all likelihood, had little to no regard for her daughter. That's not even an argument anymore. But her true temperament here would likely be far more apprehensive due to the concern over her own welfare. Every time the detective insinuated an accusation, Casey kept the same tone, same demeanor, and same confident, lighthearted disposition. If you took her out of this interrogative setting and placed her in the mall with her friends, it would seem completely normal. She would be faking her personality in both environments, yet we are only able to realize it in one. This type of mindset is linked to sociopathy. Whatever the situation or circumstance, they need to have an advantage over you. So how do they do this? They lie, and also calculate how they are going to feel and react to a certain situation before it occurs. The entirety of her focus was on making herself look good rather than being worried about the actual quality of her character. Casey, in a nutshell, was an inauthentic person, long before she ever gave birth to her ill-fated daughter. And her skill at deception alongside her manufactured personality is arguably the most terrifying part of this entire case. On December 11th...
I've got a sneaky suspicion that either the pregnancy was completely unplanned and out of the blue due to reckless contraceptive practices, or she thought, oh, I'll have a baby, and as like an accessory. Like, I don't think she ever like actually loved her child, because if she did love her child, she would, like, I'm not saying she did commit the crimes, but what isn't up for debate is the fact of how unemotional she was about the disappearance. So like, you could easily argue that she never loved her daughter to begin with. And if you're to take it a step further and go with the court of public opinion, and assume that she has allegedly not only not cared about her daughter's disappearance, but caused it and murdered her, then you've got to, like, that is just cold, callous monstrosity to be able to sit there so calmly. And, like, obviously inside she's probably an anxious wreck, but like, she's just so good at masking it. And she just doesn't realize that her disposition just doesn't fit the circumstances if she was innocent. It's just insane, bro. This case is just crazy.
On making herself look good rather than being worried about the actual quality of her character. Casey, in a nutshell, was an inauthentic person, long before she ever gave birth to her ill-fated daughter, and her skill at deception alongside her manufactured personality is arguably the most terrifying part of this entire case. On December 11th, 2008, just under 5 months since she was reported missing, Kaylee's skeletal remains were discovered in a swamp less than a mile away from the Anthony household. She was wrapped in a Winnie the Pooh blanket and then placed in a canvas laundry bag. Duct tape was discovered around the nose and mouth area of the skull, and her death was ruled a homicide. Prosecutors in the case then announced they would be seeking the death penalty. There were a multitude of discoveries made in the lead-up to the trial, and many believed it to be an open and shut case due.
So the minute it's to do with her, like in the part 1 that I made, you'll see it's like whenever she's talking about her daughter being missing, and her dad even has a t-shirt with her picture on it, like, and she doesn't get emotional at all, but whenever the conversation is based around her, she's like really narcissistic. She suddenly gets really, really emotional. She only cares about herself.
To the damnatory nature of the evidence. On the last day Kaylee was seen alive by anyone other than her mother, and the day many believed she was murdered, Casey Anthony made the following internet searches.
Wow.
At 7:54 p.m. that same evening, Casey and her boyfriend Tony were seen in a Blockbuster video store. Kaylee was nowhere in sight, and many presume she was already dead and decomposing in Casey's trunk at this point. In the following weeks, Casey went out partying most nights. Just 3 days after her daughter's supposed abduction, she was captured in various photos participating in a hot body contest. 12 days after, she got a tattoo on her back saying Bella Vita, an Italian motto that translates beautiful life. She also made an entry in her diary around the same time which read, "I completely trust my own judgment, and I knew that I made the right decision. This is the happiest that I have been in a very long time. I hope that my happiness will continue to grow." The trial commenced on May 24, 2011. The gist of the prosecution's argument was that Casey suffocated her daughter with duct tape and then placed her in the trunk for a few days before disposing of her body in the swamp. The motive for the murder was the primary focus during their opening statement.
This isn't just a case about Casey Marie Anthony. It's a story about Kaylee Anthony as well. Kaylee Anthony was born on August 9th of 2005. It was a Tuesday. And Kaylee lived nearly every day of her life on a quiet residential street in Orlando called Hope Spring Drive. Casey Anthony, Kaylee's mother, appeared to all outward observers to be what her parents thought she was. A loving mother working hard to provide support for her daughter. But as the evidence in this case and the investigation into the background of Casey Anthony will show, that was an illusion. On Monday, June 16th, Cindy Anthony goes to work, as I've described, sometime between 7 and 8 a.m., and is out of the house until the late evening. George Anthony specifically recalls that at 12:50 p.m. on June 16th of 2008, his daughter Casey left the residence on Hope Spring Drive with Kaylee Marie Anthony. Kaylee was wearing a pink shirt, jean shorts, sunglasses, and a backpack. And Jojo, George Anthony, kissed his granddaughter goodbye and never saw her again. In fact, no one but Casey Anthony ever saw Kaylee Marie Anthony alive again. The evidence in this case will establish that there is no other reason for the placement of multiple pieces of duct tape on this child's face, mouth, and nose other than the specific intent to end that child's life. No one but Casey Anthony had access to all the pieces of evidence in this case.
What is she shaking her head for? Everything so far that she said is factual. She hasn't said, "Oh, you've like it's not even allegedly at this point. Like everything so far that the prosecutor said is just factual. She is the only one who last saw her. She is the only. I mean, because oh gosh, you have to see part one to really get it.
The duct tape, the laundry bag, the blanket, the shorts, the shirt, the car. No one else lied to their friends, to their family, to investigators. No one else benefited from the death of Kaylee Marie Anthony.
Let me just reiterate. I'm not saying she's guilty of the crimes, even though I personally think she is from my personal opinion, and the court of public opinion thinks she is. I'm not saying she definitely did it, but I mean, come on, man, the evidence is pretty clear, that something is going on.
Kaylee's death allowed Casey Anthony to live the good life, at least for those 31 days.
And also, if your daughter's gone missing, why would you get a tattoo saying beautiful life, like, while your daughter is missing? That's the last thing you'd do while your daughter is missing.
Although there was a lack of direct physical evidence tying the defendant to her daughter's death, the evidence the state actually had still seemed overwhelming, and they understandably thought relying on the facts alone would easily secure a conviction. The defense, on the other hand, were up against it. So not only did they use charm and appeal to sway the jury's attention away from the evidence, they dropped an absolute bombshell in their opening statements to create as much doubt as humanly possible.
On behalf of the defense, I want to thank you for the sacrifice that you've made in your jury service and coming here and helping us see justice. We know it's no easy task, and we intend, I'm sure both sides, on getting you home as quickly as possible once you have all of the information that you need. Everyone wants to know what happened. How in the world can a mother wait 30 days before ever reporting her child missing? It's insane. It's bizarre. Something's just not right about that. Well, the answer is actually relatively simple. She never was missing. Kaylee Anthony died on June 16, 2008, when she drowned in her family's swimming pool. Well, the reason we're all here is because not of the commonality of this tragedy, but of the uniqueness of the family that it happened to.
So if she drowned in the pool, what's with the duct tape?
You will hear about ugly things.
What is with the whole searching about foolproof suffocation?
Secret things.
What about the lying to police, like, over and over again? What's with the tattoo? What is with all of it? Like, it's so, even though it's circumstantial evidence for the most part, like, it's pretty, it's painting a not so pretty picture, and it's pretty obvious.
Things that people don't speak about. Things that Casey...
Let me go back, because this gets insane.
Because not of the commonality of this tragedy, but of the uniqueness of the family that it happened to. You will hear about ugly things, secret things, things that people don't speak about, things that Casey never spoke about. On June 16, 2008, after Kaylee died, Casey did what she's been doing all her life, or for most of it, hiding her pain. Going into that dark corner and pretending that she does not live in the situation that she's living in. This family must keep its secrets quiet. And it all began when Casey was 8 years old and her father came into her room and began to touch her inappropriately. This child, who at 8 years old, learned to lie immediately. She could be 13 years old, have her father's penis in her mouth, and then go to school and play with the other kids as if nothing ever happened. That will help you understand why no one knew that her child was dead.
No, it still doesn't help me understand, mate, even if it was true. Sorry. No, just no.
And play with the other kids as if nothing ever happened. That will help you understand why no one knew that her child was dead.
Sometimes I wonder if she's showing some genuine emotion about the fact that she's throwing her dad under the bus, like, to get off of it herself. How horrible those accusations. Like, I'm not saying they're true or false, because, like, we don't know. Like, only Casey knows, and her dad knows for sure. But, like, if she's using that as a scapegoat and is fabricating it at the same time, man, even if it was true, that's no excuse, like, whatsoever. Like, it's irrelevant. Like, but, like, I don't even think it's true. Like, and if she is throwing her dad under the bus like that, that is abhorrent.
The trial would go on to last 6 weeks, with the prosecution exposing the truly dark and deceptive nature of Casey's character. While the state relied on fact, the defense clung on to theory. and proposed every conspiracy under the sun in the hope they would create enough skepticism and confusion. One of the more noted details of the trial was the courtroom presence of Jose Baez. He had an exceptional ability of narrative control and storytelling, and his capacity to create a connection with the jury seemed far more adequate than that of the state. This was recognized and mentioned multiple times in the media, yet the overwhelming majority of those following the case were almost certain that it wouldn't be enough to save the defendant. Closing arguments were put forward on Sunday, the 3rd of July.
When you have a child, that child becomes your life. This case is about the clash between that responsibility and the expectations that go with it and the life that Casey Anthony wanted to have. Tony has this life. He's free. He's a club promoter. He's out there at night with the loud music and dancing, and it's a great, free life. So she has a choice. A life tethered to a child, or a life free to be 22. And as hard as it is for anyone to imagine, she had to choose between sacrificing two things. The first was her dreams and the life she wanted. And the second was her child. And we submit to you the evidence in this case shows that the choice she made was her child.
Here we are at the end of our journey. And I have to tell you that I probably think you have more questions than you have answers.
Look. Check out the judge's face, yeah? Check out this judge's face, yeah? He is not, like, from what I can tell, he is not impressed. Like, he's like, kind of like morally objecting, at least in his own head, to what this attorney is doing. That's my opinion, anyway. Right, let's get the screen. There we go.
And if you recall at opening statements, the final thing that I told you, at the end of the day, when everything is said and done, the one question will never be answered. The key question in this case will never be answered. It can never be proven. And that is, how did Kaylee die? I'm going to start with my biggest fear. I'm going to tell you right up front what I fear may happen in this case. And I want to talk to you about it and explain why I feel that way. This case deals with so much emotion. I know that there were times where every single person in here felt something deep down inside. Your rules of deliberation, what the law is that this case must not be decided for or against anyone because you feel sorry for anyone or are angry at anyone.
You'll notice that Mr. Baez locks the jury's focus on this while subtly concealing this. He presents the argument that the prosecution has purposely got the jury emotionally invested in the case in the hope it would push them towards a guilty verdict. Yet in this exact same statement, he himself is getting them emotionally invested for the exact opposite reason. While refuting the prosecution's supposed attempt to entice anger, he subtly attempts to evoke empathy. Say what you want about this attorney and the ethics of his conduct, but what you are about to witness is expertly done, and what many believe to be what saved Casey Anthony's life.
And that's because, obviously, we want you to base your verdict on the evidence, not on emotion. And it's my biggest fear because it's such a difficult thing for you to push aside. Kaylee Anthony was a beautiful, sweet, innocent child who died far too soon. There's no doubt about it, and that is not disputed by anyone. But to parade her up here, to invoke your emotion, would be improper. It's improper under the law, and it's improper as to the rules of your deliberation. He went on for a great length of time talking about this beautiful child. Not on his evidence, not on the evidence that was presented before you. It was to set up the emotion for what was to come. And that is exactly how this case was presented. They didn't come right out the gate and show you the evidence. They gave you 2 weeks of testimony that was completely irrelevant and served only one purpose. And that was to paint Casey Anthony as a slut, as a party girl, as a girl who lies, and has absolutely nothing to do with how Kaylee died.
How is that irrelevant? Like, the content of her character speaks volumes, and how she interacts with people and how deceptive she is. How is that not relevant, dude?
That was to paint Casey Anthony as a slut, as a party girl, as a girl who lies, and has absolutely nothing to do with how Kaylee died. And this prosecution was geared in such a manner that it was deliberate, it was methodical, it was thorough, and it was detailed.
Mr. Baez then focuses on the fact that the state has the burden of proof, and thereafter continues to intertwine the two essential features of his argument, empathy and doubt.
Don't speculate. Don't guess. It has to be proven to you beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. If you don't know what happened, it wasn't proven. We don't want you to tell us what you think happened. We want you to tell us what was proven happened. And that's the difference here. Because you know what? We can go on and speculate all day long as to the different theories that were posed before you, as to the different possibilities. But the truth of the matter is it must be what was proven. There are no mysteries to solve here. There should be no mystery before you right now. If you have questions, then it was not proven. And that's as simple as it goes. Now, back to what I was saying with their initial setup, the way the case was presented, the first couple of weeks. You see, the strategy behind that is if you hate her, if you think she's a lying, no good slut, then you'll start to look at this evidence in a different light. You'll start to, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I'm seeing something that's not there.
I'm sure you can see like a look of despise, like not just from the prosecutors, which would be understandable in any given situation, but like the court typographer, I'm not sure what they're called, the judge, like the entire audience or whatever you call them, like I don't know, like I'm British, but like yeah, everyone in the courtroom is like, oh man, like it's just the way he works around the jury is masterful. But like I'm not down with his ethics or even his morality, to be honest with you.
And start to actually discriminate against her rather than give her the standard that is afforded to each and every citizen in our country. And that is that the state, that the government come in here and prove their case beyond and to the exclusion of every reasonable doubt. But you can get away with that if we can get a jury to hate her. But you're here to fulfill an oath. You've labored tremendously over this journey. And we're going to ask you to render a verdict of not guilty on these charges because they simply were not proven. And they're simply not true.
For the 9th Judicial Circuit in and for Orange County, Florida. State of Florida versus Casey Marie Anthony. As to case number 2008 CF 15606-0. As to the charge of first-degree murder, verdict as to count 1, we the jury find the defendant not guilty, so say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, on this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of aggravated child abuse, verdict as to count 2, we the jury find the defendant not guilty. So say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. As to the charge of aggravated manslaughter of a child, verdict as to count 3, we the jury find the defendant not guilty. So say we all, dated at Orlando, Orange County, Florida, this 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. And juror number 12, were these your true and correct verdicts? Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
You've got to wonder, well, I've got to wonder at least, if it was a bloke up there, yeah, a guy, with the same evidence, the Google search history, like all of it, yeah, the same exact evidence, would he have gotten away with it with the same attorney, or like, or what? Is it because she's an attractive young woman, like that gave her a bit of an edge? I have no idea, but like, it all stinks to high heaven, man.
This 5th day of July, 2011, signed foreperson. And juror number 12, were these your true and correct verdicts? Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Will counsel and the defendant approach the podium?
Look how smug Jose Bias looks, yeah? Because he knows this is a make or break. He's obviously got a good career anyway, because like you can tell by his tailored suits and his delivery. But this case is probably the biggest case he'll ever do in his entire life. And you know that there's a bunch, again, I'm not saying that Casey's guilty, because I can't say that. Allegedly, I think she's guilty, allegedly. But yeah, like you know for a fact he's gonna have his phone line booming, like with people who are like clearly guilty of something, but like want a chance of getting off of it. And his business is booming. That's why he looks so smug about it.
It's your true and correct verdicts? Yes. Thank you.
Okay. Will counsel and the defendant approach the podium?
Well, I hope that this is a lesson to those of you who have indulged in media assassination for 3 years, with bias and prejudice and incompetent talking heads saying what would be and how to be. I'm disgusted by some of the lawyers that have done this, and I can tell you that my colleagues from coast to coast and border to border have condemned this whole process of lawyers getting on television and talking about cases that they don't know a damn thing about and don't have the experience to back up their words or the law to do it. Now you've learned a lesson, and we appreciate the jury. Those of you that have been objective and professional, we like it. Others, we're going to be talking to again.
The only lesson I've learned here is only in America, to be honest with you. That's the only lesson I've learned here. No way would this have run in the UK. Like, that can't run. Like, with evidence like that, it's just, and the public wouldn't have it either. Like, the public would be absolutely outraged about it. Like, I'm sure they were in the US as well, but like, no way. Like, how did they get away with this? I have no idea.
Thank you very much.
Casey did not murder Kaylee. It's that simple.
He's got incongruent body language there. He's doing a half nod, a half shake his head. That is incongruent.
The jury, those of you that have been objective and professional, we like it. Others, we're going to be talking to again. Thank you very much.
Casey did not murder Kaylee. It's that simple. And today, our system of justice has not dishonored her memory by a false conviction.
Can you actually believe what just happened, guys? I am gobsmacked, and I'll remain gobsmacked to this very day and for the rest of my life. You've been locked into Nuclear Reaction Faction. Subscribe for more. Check out my other content. Rest in peace, Kaylee Anthony, and I'll catch you in the next one. Peace.